come across, thank you. You come
You're welcome.
across as somebody who's that calm and strong. And even when you were correcting me, teaching me, you were kind and kind but firm, I would say. Um,
We're all doing our best all
was
the
very
time.
helpful. I really
Yeah.
appreciated that. And I
Mhm.
knew that your voice and felt like your voice had to be heard.
Thank
So
you.
I have in a minute or two, I have questions for you to try and make space for people to hear what you have to say. Um, I think about letting you introduce yourself and things I've missed or correct what I've said. Have a conversation about uh, children and children's services in across Canada. Manitoba's, I know where you are. And then take comments and questions from people, and hopefully we've created a brave space so people will do that. Let me say
Thank
a,
you.
a couple things about why this meeting and this is one in a series of what I've called hopeful conversations that we've organized online and in person. Two things caused me to think it was a good idea to do that, at least two things. One was over the summer in Ontario, things seemed to be cascading into crisis in every service that touched every service system that touched a child or a family. Enough so that even the head of the Ottawa Child Protection System had said in the newspapers that her agency was in crisis. Um, the deaths connected to children in one way in care in Ontario or another, if they're in family cases or in care themselves, the deaths have increased. One every 3 days continues. Families with complex special needs children were not being able to find the services and supports they needed, and um, being forced again to relinquish their children to child protection, and child protection didn't have the resources themselves. And this is not me criticizing, this is them saying we did not have the resources themselves to care and do not have the resources to care for children. So there was an issue of out of unlicensed placements, which means hotels and children as young as 3 living in offices in child protection buildings, uh, s- trailers in parking lots. There's the autism services wait list in Ontario, I think, is to 60 to 70,000 now. Uh, Children waiting for children's mental health services, principals with in primary school, 60% of principals in primary school sending children with special education needs home. At least 60% of principals report doing this because there is not enough there was no special education supports in the school for them. So it's a mess. We brought people together, 60, 70 people, young people, caregivers, workers, unions, teachers, psychologists, psychiatrists, advocates, academics, lawyers, anyone from any sector that touched the lives of children and families, including parents and and young people themselves. And we started by asking, is this true? Things are in crisis, like it's a free fall. People said two things. Yes, uh, but no. It's not, there's not an impending crisis. It's here. We're
Yeah.
not moving to it. And then the other thing that I noticed was there was a lot of tears. And the tears came from not the parents and the young people who were experiencing things, but the workers, the teachers, the union presidents, the you name it. People expressed a despair about not knowing not feeling there was anything that could be done. because the government won't listen. We're stuck with this moral injury of participating and watching, trying to do our best in things that just aren't working.
Yeah, in a broken system.
Well, no system, I think. And so when I worked with young people, there were always three things I thought of. They taught me what's the problem, what would good look like, and how do we get there? And I felt like
Mm.
young people, I don't know if everybody here would say this, but young people, I'd say, yeah, stop asking us about what's wrong. We've already told you 100 times. Like already
Right.
know. Do something. Uh,
Time for action now.
yeah. And I remember a minister saying to me, wow, Irwin, is there a child protection system that's working in the world? Can you point to it? And actually, let me say this about Canada. No, but that in my mind proved a point is that all the child protection systems in at least what we call liberal democracies, they're all the same, they're all based in the same structures and thinking and philosophy. Uh, and so anything that changes within them isn't fundamentally changing things. So my example, and I'll give you a chance to comment this, Angela, is I was with people who had met with the minister in Manitoba and director of child welfare in Manitoba, and they were going through all the changes that have been done in Manitoba to change the child protection system. And at the end, they said, we've done massive change. But what hasn't changed is the outcomes. Families aren't doing better. Children aren't doing better. The rate of children coming into care is, in terms of overrepresentation, is not different. And I thought that is speaks to the problem. And the last thing I want to say that brought me here to this point is the representative for children and youth in British Columbia last summer reached out to me before the summer, but last summer she reached out to me to be an advisor on a report that she was doing that was a systemic investigation in child protection. And what her report ended up saying, and to a little bit of extent, I was going to say our report, I had a small role in that. It's BC and the office that did that. But what it said was, um, what exists cannot provide every child with what they need when they need it, and what exists cannot provide every family with what they need when they need it. Things need to change. They talked about something called a child well-being system that was built in something other than risk and liability. Could be built in indigenous ways of knowing. It could be built in social determinants of health. It could be built in belonging. It could be built in love, but something other than risk and liability.
Yes.
And it was the first, it's called Don't Look Away. I like that report. I think it was the first report of its kind that was, in a way, abolitionist about, and that used to be a dangerous word, abolitionist about what exists, and start building and creating and thinking about what could replace it. What could replace it? And that um took me to having these hopeful conversations. We did have a bigger in-person one in at Toronto Metropolitan University because they're a partner in this. The dean of of social service at TMU with 150 people, and we're holding one this winter in Ottawa at Carleton. And then there are our foundations. A shout out to the Sonar Foundation in Ontario, but also McConnell Foundation and Laidlaw Foundation, who say that they're committed to thinking about a process that will actually create some fundamentally different ways of supporting and caring for children and families and understanding safety differently. Um,
Well,
so
we can't do
Angela,
that without talking about neurodivergent and disabled children and
absolutely
those with
not.
complex needs. And yet the entire system does not and does not kind of consider them like I need them to. I think that we all need them to.
So
One of the
before we get
examples,
there,
yeah,
wait,
I'm getting
I just
spicy,
want,
Irwin. I'm getting spicy.
well, I'm done talking, so that's good. And I'm sure people are glad about that. I just wanted to provide context. I
Thank
put
you.
our email in the chat, and if people want to get involved in that, they can.
Okay.
Please, first, before I go on, correct me if I and add anything to how I described who you are. And then you can say what you want about. Start wherever you want.
Well, I'm a mom. I'm a mom to six, so I'm a blended family, and my children are my loves, and they are the reason why I'm so passionate about this work. I did grow up in foster care and I bounced around quite a bit. So I've got lots of experience, that lived experience of, having the system just not meet my needs. And I do have a lot of disabilities. I have learning disabilities. I was recently diagnosed as autistic, as well as ADHD. So that combination, like, really makes me feel like the opposite of belonging, right? And there's many good reasons for that. One, the world is not made for those of us who are wired in a different way. The neuro minority make up 20% of the population. And we're just now beginning to be part of policy change and research and all that stuff. So, I have my lived experience of, having disabilities and being a parent. And then I've been a scholar and in social services now for 27 years. And it is my life and my passion to love community in meaningful ways. And books are just one of those ways. But this year alone, I've actually trained almost 10,000 people. I did a little bit of a calculation, and it's more than I've ever done in my entire career. So I'm feeling pretty grateful. I'm feeling really grateful to be here to talk about this really important topic of the lives of children, because so much is like, we talk about children are so resilient. They'll get through it all, no matter what. And the reality is, like, trauma is trauma, and you got to
Mm.
heal from it, or else the brain saves it for a rainy day, or for anything that could be dangerous. So I think bringing up those of us who are wired in, a neurodivergent, a sensitive way, no matter what you want to call it, putting us on the map and saying, we need the felt sense of safety. We need collaboration. We need, the preparation and prevention, and parents and caregivers and foster parents and staff who support these kids. They want to know how to do things great. They do. But there's not really any meaningful training, at least here in Manitoba. And then I look at my friends in BC. I've done lots of advocacy work there and in Ontario as well. I get told, we know all the things. And I'm like, well, I research it every day and I don't know all the things. So I'm not sure how you could know all the things. Like, tell me, Um, and there's got to be room. There's got to be room to be human in a system. There's got to be room for me to own my humanness or the areas that I'm not strong. And that doesn't exist yet. So service providers in general are saying, they know all the things, that everything is going great. Or they'll say, like, it's going terribly and I don't know what to do. But the foundation is loving and caring, right? For those colleagues, for those caregivers, and saying, thank you for reaching out and being curious. Let's figure it out together. You know, what about your nervous system? What does your nervous system say? I don't know, I'm just so busy living life. Well, let's feel our emotions. Let's feel our body. Because neurodivergent kids and autism in particular, one of my favorite neurotypes,
Mhm.
they're feeling your body and your emotions sometimes before you're even aware that you're feeling it. So these kids aren't feeling safe. And the feeling of safety is safety. So
Mm.
how do you learn and grow if you don't feel safe? It's actually not possible. So that's, my frame is love first and love hard, and know that everyone is doing their best. And we've got to put these kids that, have these additional support needs on the map in a way that's wraparound support. And really comprehensive trainings and creativity and
Yeah.
accessibility, you know? That's my
Yeah.
favorite.
And so you asked I asked you, oh, what questions would you like to be asked?
Yeah.
And one of the questions I'm gonna say verbatim because I thought, well, what a great question. You said, and I'm adding the Irwin in here. Irwin, when we talk, I use in the tone too. Irwin, when we talk about disrupting the narrative, well, what
Yeah.
story needs to end and what story needs to begin? And I think that's such a great question. For me, you just started to answer it, but I don't know if that was your answer. Where you started talking about a different way of understanding safety,
Yes.
and from a child's point of view, what is safety, which may not be what all our tools, what government works towards. How many people in a, I was a child advocate. I'm not saying it's not good to think about uh, how many people are in a room, in a bedroom, or how big is the bedroom, or mm, what you get it, the way in which we define what is safe. Um, and,
Yeah.
and it's not the way you just defined it earlier, but I don't know if that's the narrative you think should change, or maybe it's one of them. I don't know.
I think you've hit it. I think it's not everything, but it is important. And to me, safety and how we have previously defined it is incomplete. And, children might be physically safe, but feel in terror. And it is up to caregivers, all of them, including the admin who are making the policies and procedures, all the way to those lovely, foster care folks or, parents and caregivers for the sense of feeling, the felt sense of safety in the body. And I gotta be honest, like I thought I understood what regulation was all of these years. And in the last year in particular, I think now I actually understand. Because the depth of my understanding is humans aren't able to process emotions they're not allowed to have. And this idea of anger is bad or frustration is bad. No, emotions are part of who we are. And even fear is communicating to us. But children don't have the ability to self-regulate. They do not have the ability. So it's up to adults in the world for us to calm our storm and to have their nervous system rest in ours. That doesn't mean be perfect, because I've never met a perfect person yet. We are literally walking dumpster fires doing our best. Okay.
Walking dumpster fires.
We
Okay.
are. We are. Like people look to other people and they say, oh, that parent or that, that clinician or that service provider, they're so fancy, they're so shiny, they're so perfect. I work with professionals all over Canada and beyond. And even the shiniest of people, the head of all the CFSs, they are also dumpster fires. We are all doing our best. I don't know anybody else, who like, I hate bringing out my recycling. I hate doing dishes. I mean, this is the reality of being human. And I think part of it and calming our storm is embracing all of us, including the darkness. And we all have dark pieces of who we are, things that we don't love about ourselves. Without that foundation of that staff and colleagues are allowed to be human, how do we actually change the system? Because everything is perfect. I can't say that we did something inappropriate. In British Columbia, I wrote a report because one of the agencies, CFS agencies, MCFD,
Hmm.
they were going against their own policies and procedures. And like, oh, one or two? No, I wrote a report about how they were going against their own policies and procedures. So we do need to start with being human. And how do we translate love and respect and trust on the ground level? And it starts with what's in our nervous system, our body, and accountability, transparency. So when we talk about disrupting the narrative,
Hmm.
the story is that, children are everything. They belong to all of us. It is our privilege, our honor to love and embrace these children as the next generations. And that means some kids are going to have higher needs and some are going to have lower needs, but we've got to match what their needs actually are, and it starts in the nervous system. And I want to create a training for every CFS agency in Canada that's like baseline accessibility, accommodation, like what you can't have trauma-informed care without neurodivergent and disability affirming care. You cannot separate them. So that's the narrative. Somehow we're supposed to silo all these supports and then make these barriers to be able to even get basic needs met and save these children's lives. You know, one death is too many.
Hmm. What can I ask you what maybe it's jumping ahead of where you want to go, but what does that look like? What does that look like? What would a system that provided the kind of supports or in I don't even know the right word, worked with families and children in the way you imagine, what would it look like?
When I think of the word like, or the words meaningful support, I
Mm,
mean like prevention. So if I'm a parent and I'm struggling with my kiddos or things happening in my life, I might need wraparound support. I might need some of my support to access food or to support to access, healthier decisions because I'm having a hard time. That doesn't mean I'm broken. That means everybody in life needs support at some time or another, and that's my time for support. I think that taking kids away from those who love them the most, like it should be only when absolutely necessary, and other things have been tried first, but that's not what I've been finding in Canada. So that prevention piece of let's work with the parent, let's collaborate with them, family engagement practices, which means listen to what the parent is experiencing and support them to learn about their own body needs and how to get them met in a way that is safe and feeling safe for them and their family. I don't understand how we take children away from parents because they're poor, and then we're spending thousands of dollars a month in putting them into specialized foster care placements instead of just helping that parent get the basic needs met. Like that doesn't make sense. So there's not really consistency across offices. So to me, that's like a ground up. Like, how do we become consistent? How do we support parents meaningfully to do the prevention? And if children do need to temporarily go away from their parents for many, many good reasons, can we please make sure that those staff are properly trained? Because right now they're not.
yeah.
And they don't understand, you can't be shouting at a kid or demanding of a kid, especially if they have an autistic neurotype and they're under the PDA profile, which is a nervous system disability where even demands of things that they need and want feel like danger, a threat response. So, like, if you don't understand nervous systems and you don't understand disability, we're at a deficit out of the gate. But this is not, like if there was free trainings online that anyone could access, that was the best quality evidence made for you in regular talk. Like, why don't we have that? It doesn't make sense to me.
We have this sys narrative that
Hmm.
somebody, I don't know if she's here, but Marilee Sherry t talked to me about this. We think that safety is in exclusion when safety is in inclusion. Actually, exclusion is unsafe, and we have all the evidence we need of that. And I was in a meeting and and we are talking about the need to change residential care. Again, this was in BC, it was just last week. And somebody had said, well, this one group home was doing so well at including families in the service once they removed. And I thought that, see, that's not going to create change. What if they said that family was so good in including the group home in their family that when the child moves, they're not leaving the family, the group home is coming into the family. And what if we had systems that were built, and I don't even know how you would do that from a white settler point of view and my training and the way I've grown up. But what if we created a system that was built to not exclude families, but come into families to support the family. So the family isn't losing something by having their child go live in a group home. The family is gaining something, and so is the child. They're not losing their family. It's just the support. And things would have to be operated very differently. And it couldn't be about risk and liability anymore because the way lawyers understand risk and liability, we'd be taking risks and liability, but we would be having maybe safer children and healthier families. I don't know. That's,
Maybe that's then the definition of risk and liability needs to be redefined. I think about,
well,
the
yeah.
language of inclusion in education and how my definition of inclusion is actually very different than all the school divisions I support and I love. I'm an ally to educators. But
Tell me
their
about that.
definition, the
Talk
definition of
about that.
inclusion is
Uh-huh.
that they take a kid with additional support needs without additional support and plop them in the classroom and go, look, we include them. Huh? Look at
Yeah.
that. We're amazing. And I love them and they're wrong. So if you can wear a pair of shoes that's two sizes too small, can you run?
No.
No. And the longer you wear those shoes, the more they're going to hurt you. So it's not a matter of let's get this kid in residential or let's get this kid in the education system to get ready for the real world. My world is totally accommodated and adaptive to what my neurotype and my nervous system is, and I'm doing great. If I am going to live at Costco on a Saturday morning, my nervous system will not allow me to be my favorite me. In fact, I'm going to really dislike me. So I can't pick up these kids and put them into an environment they're not made to be successful in, right? And it's up to, like, environment is not just the house. Environment is the people in the house. It's their heart work. And I love my frontline colleagues. I deeply admire and respect them, and they deserve more. They deserve support and understanding that that child is being oppositional, not because they're trying to harm you. They're afraid. And this feeling of fear can look like aggression, violence,
Mm.
unreasonableness. Have we ever been unreasonable? Anybody ever go out and have a little bit of road rage because someone's being unreasonable to us? Then we feel really justified to be outrageous. Yeah, it happens. But these kids are living in this state, and no one benefits from that. We only benefit from loving these kids and having them embrace who they are and saying, I like you, and you're never going to change my mind. Never. And I
Mm.
might only get to know you for a few years, but I'm going to care about you an awful lot. And I'm going to be thinking about you forever because this period of time is I get to be in your life, and I'm grateful for that. And you get to be in mine, and I'm a weirdo. Sorry about that. But we're gonna imprint on each other, and I'm gonna carry this time, and I'm gonna try to be in your life for as long as I can, right? Like that feels different. I remember sitting with a CFS worker and them saying, hi, you want McDonald's fries? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And she's like, do you know who I am? I work for CFS. And I was like, 4 years old. I didn't know what she's talking about. She's like, I probably will never see you again, but could you tell me about how things are with your mom? That's what we got. That's the best we can do. I understand it's hard to keep, folks in these jobs that are so demanding, but maybe the structure of the job needs to change.
The other thing I heard, and I wonder if you comment on this, I heard the again the dean of social service at TMU, Kiris Garibaldi, was quoting a study. I don't have the study. So I trust him, it exists. And he was saying that it looked at young people who had faced challenges as children, and including being in care, and what made a difference. Because the young people who were now adults and were what we deem as successful, right? What made a difference? And he said, almost to a person, what they pointed to was somebody who was not a professional. Very seldom was it a professional or a program that they said, that's it, it was this. And even when they did, they would point to aunties or friends or teacher who said something, not as a teacher, and that's what I was getting to, but as somebody that they say knew them, understood them, listened to them. These were the things that made a difference. And he was saying, how do we create, if we know that's true and know what you just said is true, how do we build that into systems so that it's intentional?
Inherently being seen as inherently good, no matter what your behavior is. And I think
Oh,
that's at the
okay.
heart of what you're saying. So for I had educators as well. I had educators that said, you'll never go to university and you'll never amount to anything, so don't even try. And that imprinted on me. But I also had educators that just loved me. And no matter what kind of disturbing I was doing, they were just happy to see me as human to human, heart to heart. And that stuck with me more than anything. It's like, I see you and I accept you for all of who you are. And I like you. You are inherently good no matter what's going. You are special to me, right? That hits to the core of where we need to be. And if a kid doesn't have that, even if it's not family, I wasn't in a situation where that was my reality. It wasn't my family seeing and saying that. But I did have a teacher. I did have an early childhood educator, right? And even having them for a year and a year, many years later, I really think that's why I'm here. Like
Mm,
that carried me through some very dark times of, unhealthy and very violent relationships and, not unsure about housing. And it was touch and go for a few times in my life. But I just remembered that feeling of somebody really believing in me. And I think if that's the foundation of where we're going, that's true belonging. I might not belong with everybody, but if I can belong with someone, one person, that feels like home, and we can learn to feel safe in our bodies with that feeling. But we need someone else. Healing happens relationally. These kids cannot do it alone. We cannot, as adults, do it alone.
mhm.
Right? Their prefrontal cortex isn't developed until age 25 minimum. And if they're neurodivergent, it's age 30. Like, we got to have mentors, we've got to have people. And I think that's what's missing. That's what's been missing. And that's
So,
why good staff, right? Good people.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember a deputy minister saying to me, "Okay, Aaron," and like he's a great guy, but he would hear this conversation back then and say, "It's driving me crazy." He would know that sounds uh, wrong to say. It would really bother him.
Yeah.
Um, and he'd said, "Irwin, we can't. What do you want me to do with this? Like this whole discussion, we can't legislate love. That's it." And you've said to him, you can't, but you can legislate the conditions in which love can flourish. And I wonder what you think about that and what that means. Like, so what are things that need to change that could intentionally make it more possible for things to work the way well, we know, we know children need. What could change?
For me, one of the biggest ways I've been able to love community and children is by training those who care. for them. So that means loving up their parents, loving up their educators, loving up their grandparents, their therapists, and teaching them like what you're seeing of, let's say, behavior,
Hmm.
but what it's like for that child. What is happening in that body and in that brain, and why? They're not trying to bug you, okay? They're trying to search for safety because brains are made to take the path of least resistance to get what they need. They're not meant to listen, okay? And then now what can we do about it? Because if I understand that child's behaviors as communication, as information for me to decode, that is my responsibility to manage me, what I say, what my nervous system feels like to them. That's my job. And that's my
Mm.
honor. That's my privilege. That empowers me. And for me, that is a low investment, high return by government. For a couple $1,000s, we could have a free training for all of Canada. Why are we not doing that? Why?
What would be, what would, if I was, and I'm a parent, and what would I stop doing and what would I start doing if I was a mental health worker or a social worker in CFS?
The first place, I really enjoy teaching people about like this feeling of regulation in their body because the nervous system is a tool. And if I walk into a room, and you have that vibe that feels really good or maybe not good or medium, these children are
Yeah.
feeling it times 10. So you could have had something really hard happen in the morning that has nothing to do with that sweet kiddo, but they will smell it on you and they will internalize it to be about them because that's how children are. It's not personal. And that causes this trigger response where they like gotta push to see where is the line, where's the safety, what's happening? Do you got me? Yeah, I got you. So, for example, if I'm trained that if I've got something going on in my body and I'm feeling this, I walk in the room and say like, "Ooh, I'm feeling a little funny, funky monkey today, guys. I'm gonna be doing, oh, my weird self, deep breath thing that I do, two in, one out." So playfulness, owning my own humanness, articulating that I own me. It has nothing to do with you. I've diffused their feeling of anxiety immediately. But our colleagues are not trained to do this. Parents don't have this information. We start there, and the ripple effects are immediate and they are pretty transformative. I'm working with families that are the spiciest, most complex families in Canada, and they are my loves. And I'm seeing really big changes in schools. Some of the schools have, again, like a very high population of complex needs. I'm seeing teachers go, oh, right, I get it. How can I make these small changes of how do I regulate myself in the classroom so that I have capacity to not be burnt out at the end of the day and co-regulate 32 amazing and very special folks? And it's cumulative. Just like stress is cumulative, so is regulation, so is co-regulation, so is joy. And that's where we all need to go, all of us together, because the world is a pretty scary place.
I imagine teachers or social workers would be saying, yeah, okay, let's say they have your training and they say, I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And but how difficult it is to practice even when you got it because the
Mhm.
system, the way things work requires different other things of them. They have to get a teacher maybe has to get young people, the students in their class to get a certain mark on a test, which means that they don't have the time or energy because that's not what's important. Teaching the algebra is important to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The
and
system, yeah.
so I'm just imagining that that system needs to take away, understand that if a teacher operates in the way you are imagining and teaching in their classroom, probably the marks will be better because students can't, if they don't feel safe, aren't going to learn anyway.
That's right.
So, so,
Well, and with their
but
definition
that's
of
not,
inclusion, we're putting nine autistic kids in a group
well,
that has
there you go.
18 plus neurotypical kids, and then we're like, here, teacher, figure it out. But a neurodivergent brain learns and experiences the world in a completely different way. But these beautiful, amazing, brilliant educators are not being taught that. So it's training for all of us because this is new. And we're defining inclusion, we're defining meaningful care as we're going towards it, while unlearning all the other stuff that we had
Mm.
defined as true, which was incomplete. So it's not really a surprise to me that it's feeling really confusing or really hard because I don't have the answers. None of us really have the answers. But with curiosity and compassion, with kindness, we will together move towards redefining it in a way that makes sense for all of us, which means real inclusion where everybody belongs. We're just not there yet.
So what can people do? Like, so let's say people hear and people listen to you say, okay, we're in, but that sounds like too big for me. I can't
Yeah.
do this. I can't change this. But I think you think
Mm.
there are things that people can do,
Bite
right?
size.
Yeah, bite size. And tell me
I
about that.
believe in bite size. So
Tell me
I'm
more
only
about that.
one me. So I'm
Mhm.
only one me. I can love my children and teach them about, emotions and regulation and being kind in the world and having to manage in this world not made for us. And it's pretty on fire right now. I can, as a colleague, be very gentle and kind to my partners who are all trying to do good work. I can train as many people as I can. I can do research. I can go back to school. I can do a lot of things as just one little me. Um, and so can you. So even that one breath before we have road rage is still movement in the right direction because that's changing our neurology. One breath changes how we respond. The more we behave in a certain way, the more our brain says, behave in this way. And that's okay. That can be empowering to me. But self-kindness, I want everyone's voice in their mind to be the kindest they've ever heard. And so much of our distress is caused by the voice in our head being unkind to us. So that's a huge way to have ripple effects in the world. Self-compassion, being kind to us, because we are all doing our best.
Is that what you think if caseworkers and schools allowed their encouraged, found ways, taught their staff to be like that, is that what you think would make the fastest improvement in
I
how
would say,
neurodivergent kids experience things?
I would say it's really up to each of us to find a way to be self-compassionate. And really, my experience with educators and social services folks is they're looking for practical ways to be accommodating and to have meaningful inclusion. They are hungry, but they need practical ways. The theory of, 99% of people with ADHD have rejection sensitivity dysphoria, where they sense rejection where it doesn't exist. That's nice and all, but like, how do I tell them that I'm a safe person and I'm always trying my best? Like, how do I do it? Tell me how to do it. And so we've got all kinds of resources. I work with different charities all over the world and provide them free resources. I'm always creating more resources to support those who are trying to do that self work because we can't do it alone. And sometimes, like, I only know what I know, and I don't know anything beyond that. That's the
Wait,
neurodivergent way.
wait, I'm really thinking about this, and then you're saying, because here's what I thought in my head. This isn't somebody else saying. You said, wait, yes, I get it. That people will want to know practical ways of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And then you said, yeah, there's lots of things
So
to help me now I'm making about me, do my self-work. Wait, what do you mean self-work? Is it about me? I thought it was about what I'm going to do for the kids. And you're saying no to explain
it
that?
starts with us. I can't do good work with these kids if I'm not embracing all of who I am. Because how am I going to
That's
teach
so
them to
good.
embrace who they are, including their hard emotions? Because anger is gross. It feels icky. We need it. It's valuable. But I was told, like, I can't process emotions I'm not allowed to have. I can't learn to regulate unless someone holds my nervous system and says, like, that feeling of danger won't kill you. The feeling of fear won't kill you. Growth feels gross. I'm sorry. Let me walk with you because you're not alone. That's what kids need, but I got to be in the right mind frame to offer that to that child. Or I might teach some unhealthy, coping strategies that are the best I've got because I have lots. I have had worse. Right? So what do we want to model for these kids? The anger.
And we have to, we like providers or
Yeah.
advocates or whoever we are, we have to do what you just said, regardless of if we think there's no hope and the world is falling around us, and not literally, but maybe literally. Uh,
It feels like
we
it
still
sometimes
have we still have to do what you said, find ways to do our self-work so that we can walk with the kids.
because that's the hope. The hope is that we all feel a sense of belonging and are working together for a better
Mm,
world. That is the goal. And I can't do that. I can't contribute if I'm not regulated and embracing all of my humanness. I can't. I will be unsuccessful. But even 2% improvement in my embracing who I am and loving people with all my heart, just 2%, that has ripple effects forever, you know? So I get to choose who's around me. I get to choose my life to the most part. I get to have that and I'm grateful. So gratitude, right? Embracing by almost being playful. So you learn things in 20 to 40 repetitions if you're playful, but it takes 400 repetitions if you're serious. So we got to be playful with ourselves. Look at me trying my best. Look at me. Like that will stick with me more than why am I not behaving? Oh, ick. That makes me feel nauseous, right? I want kids to have these skills, but if we don't embrace them ourselves, these kids learn by modeling, not by talking at them. So we
mm,
gotta really embody what we're wanting to teach.
mm.
And you know what? We benefit too. It's not just about these amazing kids.
I want to see if, because I bet you, I'm just looking at my time. I want to see if people have any comments or questions, but
You
after that,
bet.
I want to make sure you have said everything you would want to say
Oh,
right
I could
now.
talk all day,
I
Irwin,
know,
all
I'm thinking
day.
maybe there's a, well, you're talking to the king of talk, but yeah.
Oh, these are
So let me,
beautiful messages.
is there anybody who has a question or a comment? Just put your hand up and Angela or I will see it. Oh, Chestnut. Hi, nice to talk to you again.
Hello, friends. I'm so sorry I was stuck in another commitment and joined late, but I'm looking forward to the recording so much. I've been really excited and looking forward to this presentation. Thank you, Angela. So many rich things you've shared in the short time I've been here. The question that I wanted to ask, I put it in the chat as well. Um, you talk about this like negative self-talk, and trying to embody for our children what we want to see in them. And a barrier that we've experienced, and I think this is a common experience from talking to other parents who have neurodiverse children or trauma impacted children, is that voice is so deep within them because the world has not been kind. And so, even if they're in a home where the parents are loving and encouraging and nurturing and giving them the positive, focusing on the positive, that negative self-talk, that tape is so deep that
Yes.
like I've not been able to figure out how to change that narrative. I see
Mm.
glimpses of it once in a while, but
Yeah.
the tape is so redundant and so deep.
It's cruel.
It
right?
is
It's
so
a cruel
cruel.
voice in there. Yeah.
Yes, and I love what you said about like, you know, and as they struggle with behaving, those of us who have had the good fortune to learn some therapeutic parenting can address that, but that doesn't happen in the school system. It doesn't happen in with their peers. It doesn't happen in society at large. The looks, you know, they might
You're
get and
right.
so on. So how I'd love to see and read some of your resources around, you know, how to do that and familiarize myself with some of your guidance. Embracing neurodiversity.
Yeah, I'll check into
Yes.
Yeah.
it. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's a $20 buy. I tried to keep it as affordable as I could. It's got lots of worksheets. Those worksheets are available on my website. They are on my social media. I'm always happy to share. I have new ones I'm doing. I research every Friday night, so I always have
Oh,
new resources coming out.
okay.
And I don't keep those resources for myself. This
You're
is
so
like
sweet.
well, we all do what we can to whatever
Yeah.
ability we can, right? So I think about hacks. So I had a
Mm,
very cruel voice in my head. I grew up and it was very, very hard. And so one of the hacks is, my voice is maybe unkind, or it was, but my grandmother's voice was so loving.
oh,
So I had
oh.
my grandma's voice, when I'd be like, "Oh, Angela, why did you do that?" And then I'd have my grandmother's voice. Angela, you're an angel. And then I'd be like, oh, Omi, you shouldn't have. Like, and that playfulness, that's what rewired my brain. And it honestly, it took thousands and thousands of repetitions. It did, because it was so deep for me. And then over time, I now talk to myself like a little puppy. And I love it.
Mm,
So I'm not a morning person. Every morning I'm like, oh, sweet girl, what do you need? A treat? And I do every morning.
mm.
And then
I
I'm like,
love
look at
that.
me having my little treat. What is that? Are you hydrating? Wow, look at you adulting. And it's just so goofy. That's how I've taught my kids to have a kind voice. And my kids still
Mm,
do struggle. My kids are all very diverse, very different. My one son, my one of my loves, is early diagnosed autism. He's got
mm-hmm.
lots of stuff going on, and verbal language is limited. So how I would model for him is a little bit more creative than maybe some of my other kids, where I can have a conversation. But being playful with that voice. I watched another like a YouTube short of somebody saying her favorite hack was she'd be really like, "Ugh, why are you doing that? I'm so stupid." And then she'd be like, "and hot." And adding the "and hot" after is just this funny way of kind of catching what's being said on repeat
I
and
like that.
finding a way through, or like, "and brilliant." Oh, like, right? So finding a way and having those conversations with kids, like, what's that? What is that? That dragon in your mind, that little monster. What is that monster shouting at you? They said,
Mm,
"What? Monster, don't you do that. That's my precious son. Don't you ever say that to my son ever again." And then he's like,
mm-hmm.
"Yeah, monster." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so that's the playfulness over years,
Yeah.
years, because it's
Mm-hmm.
a real issue for these beautiful kiddos. So yes to resources. I have tons and tons of stuff.
I'm gonna
Follow
buy your
me on
book
YouTube.
today.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
YouTube, I have tons of free parenting videos that we're creating right now. I think there's 12 modules. So we're going to be sending that out in December when I'm not working so much. And each one has like infographics. I just finished an event last night for like screens and dopamine, because screens are a really big thing for sticky brains. So it's
Mm-hmm.
available for free on YouTube. It has resources in the comments. So like, it is only going to be together that we figure out a way to include and embrace these gorgeous kids.
I agree. It takes a village. What is your
It
YouTube
does.
channel called? Is it under
The
Angela?
neurocomplex, yeah, Angela Taylor, the neurocomplex therapist. So I'm
Neuro.
also on LinkedIn. Find me on there. I also have an Instagram. I do the Facebook, all the things, because that's where
Okay.
people find me. So
Lovely. I will be in touch.
my
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Sure.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Chestnut.
much.
Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you.
Is there any other comments or questions? Not. Oh, somebody.
I've got
Yes. Hi.
one.
Is it
Oh,
Alex?
you're muted,
Alexis, hi.
Alexis. Yeah.
No, just I wanted to thank you both. This was
Mm.
very, very generative for me, and I I had this idea that maybe the way we change the conversation is I was thinking about how I think like neurotypicality is like a myth, and we're all neuro complex. It's just um, some of us can't suppress certain aspects of our feeling in order to fit normal. And I wonder if the way to change things is
Mm.
to like get everyone to embrace their neuro complexity and to feel into their nervous systems and find the ways that they suppress their own feelings and live in their heads. And then it's like not about a minority of people that are diverse, but it's about everyone being complex, and then everyone has skin in the game. Um,
That's an interesting frame, and I like it very much. I
Yep.
think, we all have needs and we all have support needs. There's nobody in life that doesn't need support. And embracing your humanness, whatever that is, right, has a darkness to it. We all have intensity to some degree or another. And for me, like honoring my autistic neurotype and my intensity of my ADHD neurotype, and that those intense, like very debilitating, disabling parts of my brain, even my learning disability, um, I've got to love those parts too. I have to make space for them. And, that's why, neurodivergent affirming culture is so important to me. It has really helped me learn to love myself for the first time as a whole person. And wow, do I ever feel regulated for the first time in my life? Not hating myself. Like, wow. And that's really what I do want for everybody, no matter what, if they have a diagnosis or don't have a diagnosis, like whoever you are, embrace all of it because it's beautiful. Being human is hard, but it is incredible. You know?
Hear you.
Thank you. That
Thank
was
you
such a
both.
thoughtful question.
Thank you both. It was. Any last comments? Because I'm going to give you last word, Angela, before we go. I don't see any, so I'm going to ask you, Angela, just say whatever you think you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to, and wrap us up because I've talked enough.
I'm so grateful. I'm really grateful for this conversation. And I do feel really hopeful for the future. I feel like without conversations like this, we're going to stay pretty stagnant. But there are many advocates with lived experience who are really pushing the system to change. And an invitation to anybody, in policy, especially in government, who's curious about accessibility and inclusion. I would welcome the opportunity to offer some suggestions. It would be my honor and my privilege. So
We'll make
that's
sure
how
to
we're going
get
to do
this
it
recorded.
together, right?
We'll make sure
Yeah.
the people, the policymakers in Ontario have a recording, and maybe somebody will watch it and reach out to you.
Maybe they will. Any of the provinces. I'm here. I'm here. I do work all over the place. It's my pleasure.
And maybe we can like write to our
Oh,
MPPs, or you know what I
yeah.
mean, like to the ministers that are responsible for these portfolios, to like let them know that you're out there, because sometimes they may not know. And so getting the word out would be helpful. I'm wondering, how would I get a recording, a copy of the recording from today?
I'll send a recording to everybody who sent to RSVP, so the people here and those who couldn't come. So, and I'll give Angela one as well.
Thank you. I'll
So
put
Lovely.
it
you'll
on my
get it too.
YouTube as well because I find that's a good place for folks to find me.
We'll
So
Okay.
make
yeah, and I do offer free consultations, especially to folks who are making policy changes. It's a gift to community. So
Excellent.
Yeah,
I'll send you a message, Angela, because I'm doing some things here in Ottawa that might be of interest to just let you know about, and would love to make the connection.
fantastic.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Thank you.
everyone.
My pleasure. Thank you guys so much. I'm very
Thanks
grateful
for
for
coming,
you.
everyone, and
Do
take
something
care.
kind for yourself.
Thank
Do
you.
something kind for yourself.
Aw.
That's right.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Just staying on and